Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Winging It F1 podcast. It's the second podcast of launch season. We're looking at the cars that have gone this week. There's 4. What are they? You probably already know, but we'll discuss them later. I'm joined here by Freddie Coates and Nigel Chu, who spoke yesterday about the Mazzy news and some various other kind of regulations changes going on in F1 ahead of the season. So if you haven't listened to that, then check that out. Or even if you have listened to it, watch it. If you listened to it last time, watch it on YouTube or something. It's all views to us. But yeah, but after you've listened to this thing, you can check that out because we are talking about AlphaTauri, Williams, Ferrari, and Mercedes, looking ahead to what this season might bring or might hold for them and what we make of their cars so far. But firstly, I'll introduce both of you since I've talked enough already. Freddie, how are you?
Oh, I'm wonderful, Adam. I'm doing absolutely great. I'm really excited to get stuck into 4 more cars for 2022 season of Formula One. It's going to be brilliant. I think we've got some lovely little opportunities for great discussion from what we have on the table here today. We've got some very nice ingredients with the Mercedes, the Ferrari, the AlphaTauri, and the Williams. I'm really happy. Nigel, I should introduce you because Adam doesn't want to. Hi, Nigel. Welcome to the podcast.
It sounds like Freddie's had some other ingredients to himself. Nigel, hello.
I'm very excited as well. Not as excited as Freddie. Not quite as excited as Freddie, but after seeing the cars this week, I think we could be in for a spectacular season, hopefully.
Oh, which one's your favourite?
Which car?
Wait till the end.
It's hard to say. You put me on the spot. Ask me later.
Okay, well, stick around to the end of the podcast so you can find out that.
That's what I'm going to say.
Yeah, the first one that launched Monday. I didn't note that down in the thing. Yeah, launched on Monday was AlphaTauri, the Red Bull sister team. Red Bull, still sister team. It's kind of connected with AlphaTauri. They've become a bit more distinctive than they were with Toro. But yes, they've launched their 2022 car, which Pierre Gasly and Yuki Tsunoda will take to the track with. And gentlemen, what was your initial thoughts upon seeing it?
Initial thoughts. Delivery is all right. Probably not the best out there from what we've seen. And the car itself, I guess the big question is whether this is what the Red Bull might be like. And if it is, then they've gone with a kind of double floor concept, which we first saw with Aston Martin. So that's what caught my eye. But yeah, I think just compared to what we've seen more recently, the AlphaTauri didn't stand out as much compared to the other cars.
Yeah, I think I agree with Nigel on that. Delivery's okay. There's a few bits of it that I find a bit kind of odd, and a few bits that I think really pack a punch. So it's kind of like, nice. I think the packaging, it's very interesting at the back of the car with the Honda power unit. It's kind of very definite but tight at the same time, if that makes sense. And I found that kind of intriguing. It seems a really relatively tidy package. And I think it's going to be your classic AlphaTauri car, really. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be a good plug-and-play car that is easy to handle and so on. There's no indication that it's anything radical or anything crazy, but there's no indication that it's anything awful either. So good for me. It didn't excite me. Like, not going to lie. The delivery was I don't like that color scheme. It's just a bit bland and that kind of stuff was my main thought with it. But I get why people like it as well.
Yeah. The front wing was really low to me. I don't know if it's got rake as well, because we thought, the talk last year was there wouldn't be high rate cars and everyone would have low rate cars. Well, I don't know if it's just the front wing's really low, or whether the AlphaTauri is still a bit high rate. So maybe Red Bull might do the same thing. And traditionally, those two teams have had high rate cars. So that would be something to look out for when the Red Bull launch their car. They have launched their car when they roll out their proper car.
Show off. Yeah, they've shown how a Red Bull livery might look on a car that won't be theirs. That's kind of all they've done so far. I know what you mean about the engine packaging. It's very just kind of vacuumed onto the components that are there. It feels like you can see so much of what's underneath the skin from there. And it also seems to be kind of higher at the back, or kind of come down to a lower height than some of the other cars we've seen. So I don't know, again, whether that will still be there when it takes the track, but it does seem to kind of have a bit more height on it. And yeah, I agree with you with the low front wing. It's not what we've seen so far from the cars, but
I will say, on regards to the to both those things, like on the low front wing, I kind of feel like they all look a bit low in studio, but then on track it still looks higher. Than the Aston Martin took everyone by surprise by how high it was running on track, but it didn't give any indication that it was going to be such a high nose and front wing package. So I think with that, wait and see on track and they'll figure it out, but I imagine it won't be as low as you expect and close to the ground, because that comes from the middle of the car for the ground effect in the Venturi tunnels. And then with the tight packaging at the back, it kind of, it reminds me sort of the McLaren, which is kind of just like a smooth taper at the back. And I mean, the McLaren's not exactly very, like you say, vacuum, but it kind of is similar in kind of the way they sort of just, as a car concept, to my crude, non-aerodynamic experienced eye, it looks like it flows into itself nicely in a way with the McLaren and the AlphaTauri, in a way that a few others don't necessarily look like they do, in my opinion, but who knows.
And then kind of the other obvious question is how similar, how much can this can we take information on the Red Bull packaging, which, as we've just alluded to, we've not seen at all yet.
Well, I think the key will be what's underneath, because I think what we see on the outside, that's not where the performance is going to be made. It's going to be what's underneath the car, what we can't see. So that's where it could be more similar. So even if they look different on the outside, I would expect that they've gone with similar routes with the airflow and how to direct it. I would suspect that they've got similar philosophies in that sense.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. And just mostly from the back of the car, it's going to be pretty similar. But really, at the end of the day, we're not going to see the Red Bull car until this time next week at Barcelona. So really, it's all kind of semantics at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's going to be. We've seen in the past sometimes the AlphaTauri is easier to handle than the Red Bull. So, and obviously, Red Bull will be hoping that that's not the case this year. They'll be hoping that it's an easy car to set up, and that they've still got a competitive advantage over AlphaTauri. So, I think that'll be the key for most teams: is what are the new philosophies for the cars? Is it easy to set up? What is it like with the bigger tires? Does it handle well? All these things, because I think it is a massive reset, and everything that we know from last year, it might be the opposite this year, just because of the massive changes.
And on that point, moving on to the drivers, Pierre Gasly, Yuki Tsunoda. Gasly finished 9th, I think, off the top of my head, last season, and it was a pretty good season. Maybe a few races where you kind of felt what might have been, but he was kind of one of the standout drivers. And then Tsunoda kind of not, after a good first round in Bahrain, he kind of fell away and didn't really live up to the hype that some people were expecting. What are you expecting from these two this year? Do you think there'll be any change?
I think with Pierre, I mean, what more can he do? He's doing fantastically over 2020 and 2021. There's no reason why that shouldn't carry on to 2022, unless there's some fatal flaw with the way he's driving with these cars. I think we should expect from Pierre his peak from last year, which seems to be sort of 5th, 6th place all the time, but he would seem to every now and again would just fall away from that and just be inconclusive. I think really what he should be aiming for is 5th and 6th across the board all the time. Tsunoda should be aiming to be kind of a follow-up to that. He had a really good start and a really good end to the season, but the 20 races in between those two weren't necessarily fantastic. So I think he needs to really just prove himself as a consistent, safe pair of hands in a way that Gasly's been able to do. And hopefully then Pierre and Yuki will be mighty, because I think they've all got a good bit of potential in there. And I think I'm impressed with them for giving Yuki another chance, and I hope it works really. But he is one of the drivers on the list of could be out of F1 at the end of this year, so who knows?
Yeah, the pressure is really on Tsunoda because there's 5 Red Bull affiliated F2 drivers this year, and if one of them or 2 of them perform well, then Tsunoda could easily find himself out of F1. So it's a make or break season for him, and for Gasly, he's just got to try and keep that advantage that he had from last year, which was quite big sometimes. Whether he can, he probably can, you know. I mean, it's all about how confident Tsunoda is, especially in the first few races. I think that's where Tsunoda's season could be decided if he gets off to a bad start, then we could see like last year where it takes him a lot of time to regain that confidence. So I think the start of the season, in particular for Tsunoda, is going to be key.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. We kind of alluded to this last launch episode talking about Perez and his kind of whether he'll be retaining that seat. But I don't really think there's too much upward pressure from either AlphaTauri or the Red Bull Junior team at the moment, kind of on that seat. I can't really, looking at kind of the list of drivers that are there, if we excluding Gasly because he's just not, you know, from what we've seen, he's not going to get another chance, then I just can't really pinpoint kind of anyone else that's going to be putting pressure on, you know, even the AlphaTauri seats.
The only one I can think of is Albon, because the Red Bull management are very, very pro Alex. So depending on what he does in Williams, who knows? But there's a lot of work to be done there from his side to be in a favour for a main Red Bull seat or an AlphaTauri seat. Really, there's a reason he's in the Williams.
No, I think Liam Lawson could put pressure on Tsunoda's future. I mean, this is a whole different story, isn't it? You know, F2 drivers, but I certainly don't think Tsunoda's seat will be safe because I think there's a lot of talented F2 Red Bull junior drivers. You know, Lawson and Vips as well. You know, if they finish top 3. Yeah, and Hauger, of course, yeah, the F3 champions. If they finish top 3, I think Tsunoda could be in massive trouble if he doesn't have a good season.
Yeah, I think with all the drivers in there, there's kind of asterisks against them. I think that's the only thing is it seems, you know, there's kind of, I don't think, no, there's a couple of rookies, but of the kind of more senior drivers, I just don't think there's kind of been that kind of standout campaign so far. So yeah, I don't know. I think it will be an interesting one to follow. Like you say, I think he's at risk if someone can put that top 3 season together. But just looking at the list of drivers, I think they all have to step up. I don't think there's any, to me anyway, I don't think there's anyone going into this season that I'm thinking, you know, they should, if they do what I expect of them, then they'll finish in the top 3, I guess.
That's interesting. I've got different takes that, but like I said, that's a completely different conversation. For,
yeah, we'll probably do an F2 conversation at some point down the line. But there is a million possibilities of the way that championship will go. We always know that. So who knows? But I think if you've got 5 Red Bull affiliated drivers, it's probably better to hedge your bets and say that one of them will do all right, just on law of averages. But I mean, we're way out of that conversation.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we will. Once F2 gets underway, then we will do that conversation. But it's still interesting to, you know, obviously it all links together. So yeah, it's interesting to discuss. Anything else to add on AlphaTauri before we move on to the next car that was launched this week?
I mean, I think the problem AlphaTauri are always going to have is their peak ceiling. Their ceiling is always going to be front of the midfield. They're never going to break into the top 2. So it's pretty much every other team, you'd say, you know, one day they might get back to the front. But AlphaTauri have never been at the front. So that is a problem they're always going to have. So I'd say expect it. I mean, that's why we always see them as the dark horses, because we don't expect them to be at the front. So then when they are in the top 5, top 6, you know, that's a great result. So yeah, I think that's something that's always going to be there for them.
See, yeah. I kind of with that, it's The frustrating thing seems to be that they never seem to be able to put together two drivers having a kind of top six, top seven race at the same time. I think they've not. I think in their history they've.
They have had the
but
car
last year was
recently.
their best car. Like last year was their best car.
Last year on average, they were the fifth fastest car. They were ahead. They were only behind McLaren and Ferrari from a midfield perspective, and that.
Whereas when they had Verstappen and Sainz, they were probably like seventh or eighth fastest car. Yet Verstappen and Sainz are two brilliant drivers,
and they both did brilliantly.
And it's just that kind of in the past few years they've not been able to have both drivers getting in the points. Even forget kind of the top six. I think they had 3 or 4 last season. Kind of even less the season before. Where given where that car is and the fact that they've got a fair amount of top 6, top 7 finishes over that time, but it's just always one driver's able to put it together and the other one isn't. And I don't really know the kind of reasons for that, or it seems frustrating.
I think I'm agreeing with Nigel in that seems to be more down to the drivers than to the team. I think there's a lot to say for AlphaTauri making a very, very tidy racing car. And there's the glass ceiling of maybe they'll always be behind Red Bull, but there's the reason they've been rebranded as AlphaTauri. So who knows, maybe this rule change is going to be, and with budget caps and so on, there's going to be a bit more thrown at it. But that's a long way down the line. That's one of those teams with like 5-year plans and stuff like that. But there's a reason it's not being called Toro Rosso anymore, and there's a reason they've kept Gasly there. And even if it is spin, even if it is PR speak, the reasons for that are to make it its own separate team. So if maybe they can stick to that, and in a long-term perspective, you'll have them as 2 teams with links, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's a pipe dream, I guess, at the moment. But
I guess in the general sense, that just seems to be where they can make it round. If they can get both drivers having better weekends together, that'll just that's where they kind of need to make it round on the other teams. Also, they got 4th and 5th at Abu Dhabi. I completely just did not realise that, because there was a lot more going on in that race. But 4th and 5th.
Yeah, that was Tsunoda's best race of the season.
But yes, moving on in a day forward in time to Williams, who were announced with Nicholas Latifi and Alexander Albon as driving. And I've actually got a Williams themed hoodie accidentally on today, except not in the bit that's on the camera, so I've had to stand up for that. But they launched their car. It's a different colour scheme, much more blue, taking the ZRS off, which lots of people are talking about. How relevant is that? We don't know. But beyond that, the car, what do you think? I like it.
I love it. It looks absolutely amazing. I think it's one of the best looking. It's one of the best looking F1 cars I've seen. I absolutely love the blue on it, and it just looks so slick. I mean, they all do, but in particular, the Williams looks incredible to me.
I think it looks good. I think it looks really good from the side angle, and the studio shots I thought looked great. On track, it looked good as well. I think there's one little bit that I didn't like, which is the kind of bit on the front. There's a kind of like V kind of thing. And I just kind of thought I just didn't like that. And that's kind of made me a bit like, okay, that's marked it down a bit. But I think it's really nice. And I think it looks really good as a Formula One car. I think it looks like a Formula One car in a way that some Williams haven't looked like in recent years. Naming 2019 awful looking cars.
No, we wouldn't want to name those. I think it looks fantastic. They do a great job of not letting the lack of sponsors kind of take away from the appearance. I think
shiny.
It's a return of chrome. It's the kind of weird team Williams. I think with Russell leaving, that's, I don't know, taken away obviously a fair chunk of the optimism around it, and then it's whether Albon can come in and kind of reclaim the form that he showed at the start of his F1 career.
Yeah, the quality of the driver lineup has taken a hit, you'd have to say, and whether Albon can take that role of Russell of, having outstanding performances every now and then, it's very questionable. Personally, I don't think it will happen. I think the TP is going to push him quite hard, and if that's the case, then it kind of suggests, a bit like Aston Martin, that the drivers are not fulfilling the potential of the car, perhaps. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting because we have got that benchmark of Latifi versus Russell. So now we're going to see Latifi versus Albon.
I think one thing that stands in the favour of Albon is when he was doing his best performances, where he was in the very drivable Toro Rosso car that we've just previously talked about. The basics of that car is that it is incredibly drivable, and he was able to use that to hit the ground running very, very well. He didn't actually drive a Formula One car ever until testing, whereas you look at someone like Latifi, before he drove the Williams, he was a test and development driver for Force India, Williams, Mercedes, all over the shop. So there's a lot of drivers who are there who've got into a Formula One because of money, and a lot who've got in because of talent, and a lot have got in because of mixture. And Albon, to be fair, got in because he showed up with talent. And I think we're going to see him in an entirely different environment. And I think that I'm hopeful. I obviously not going to put my cards on the table and say he's going to be amazing, because I think he's going to just be good. But I think he is a good racing driver. And I think Latifi at the end of last season particularly was a very good racing driver as well. So I think it's going to be interesting to see the two of them. And I think people are going to unfairly rank them based on assumptions that I think they're both actually going to be doing quite well, but everyone's going to think they're doing badly because they've had very, very good teammates. But yeah, if that makes sense.
Well, that's the thing in F1, isn't it? Though? It is the difference between the good and the great. And if they're in the good side of it, not the great, then there is that problem.
But I don't think you can say that there's a different. If you just then have lots of great drivers, then a good driver is then going to be considered differently. Like, someone's got to finish in a position, don't they? It's like
I think you've got good, great, good, and average, and there's, I don't know, maybe 3, 4 great drivers on the grid, and then I think Albon is probably in the next camp where he's kind of right there with the competitive drivers that probably might never reach the kind of very highest echelon, but I think is still very capable of having a successful F1 career. And I'm excited. I think coming out of this season, we could be talking about kind of a rehabilitation season for Albon in kind of, image and reputation. And I certainly hope so. But I think there is more than that. And kind of looking at the kind of back of the grid from last year, you've got Alfa Romeo, Haas, and Williams, and they've all got the kind of secondary driver who's there potentially for financial reasons, that you wouldn't put kind of in the top echelon of drivers in the grid. And then you've got Schumacher, Albon, and Bottas as kind of the lead, appearing to be the lead drivers for the team. And I think you can make a case that Albon could be the leader out of that come the end of the season. Or
we'll have to wait and see. I'm hopeful that they'll have good performance, and I'm hopeful that the team will be in a decent position. I don't know whether they will be, because you can never tell with a team that's been consistently at the back for the past few years. That there's no reason why they should leap forward and stuff like that, but there's no reason why they shouldn't stay at the back and so on. It's one of those potluck kind of moments. I'm not offering any insight here with anything that I'm saying, but I don't know. I'm just saying that I want Williams to do well.
We want all the teams to do well.
I know. I don't think that's a bad thing. And I think, Williams is one of the teams that's probably I'm the closest to being a proper fan of. So from that perspective, I want Albon and Latifi to be absolutely doing brilliantly. I don't think they're going to be doing amazingly, but I think they're going to be doing a good job. I think they're going to be unfairly judged throughout the year, but I hope that we have an Albon Gasly year, that kind of thing, if that makes sense.
If Albon wants to return to Red Bull, he will have to be Williams' lead driver, because if he's not there, I don't think that return's going to be like before.
The last time he was teammates with Latifi, he was in his second year of F2, and Latifi was in his fourth year of F2, and he absolutely trounced the fella. So I think that's what I expect to happen. I think the car, I expect them to, be battling on the fringes of the points as well, because they had a lot of wind tunnel time, because they finished 10th in 2020, didn't they? So then they would have had the most wind tunnel time. They would have had 12.5% more, I think it is, than Alpine, who were 5th, and then that's like the base car and stuff like that. So they've had a lot of time to work on the car. So, there's a lot to be hopeful
about Williams. It's just whether they've done enough compared to everyone else.
Is Nicholas Latifi the only current F1 driver that any of us have met? I think he is.
I'm just trying to remember because I bumped into a lot of them, but like actually shook hands with Latifi. Yes.
Well, there we go. Team home driver for this season. Then
he's just a lovely guy, isn't he? And he's been through a lot this off-season, and he's been very candid about it through the Williams launch and so on. He was very, very open about the fact that he was sent death threats and that he felt scared when he was going out, when he went with his girlfriend to Winter Wonderland in London, and he hired security because he was scared being in the middle of the UK, having been sent death threats by Lewis Hamilton fans, so-called fans, just horrible stuff. He's been through the time of it, and I'm really happy Williams have given him the olive branch of a third season, because I think he deserves it. I think he drove very, very well in the 2021 season. He definitely picked up on his performances of 2020, which were subpar, let's be honest. His 2021 performances were growing throughout the year. He had some very good drives, and he was out qualifying and regularly on the pace of George by the end of the season very, very comfortably. And that wasn't a distracted Russell. That was Latifi doing well. So I think he's a driver who's actually shaping into a very decent Grand Prix driver.
Yeah, especially race pace, he was very close to Russell. Yes, qualified, he was sometimes quite a bit away. Yes, he out-qualified him sometimes. But in race pace, on average, he wasn't that far behind at all. And, this is George Russell, who some people think is a future world champion. So, it'd be interesting to see if actually in race pace, if he's got the better of Albon, perhaps.
He gets tarnished with the wrong brush, just Latifi, in my opinion.
Yes, maybe. We'll I guess we'll see the season. I guess at the end of this season, we'll be able to answer that. I think as well, like George Russell looks to be one of the fastest qualifiers out there. It's being far away from him is not the worst driver to be lacking pace in qualifying too. But do you think that he needs? Do you think he needs to kind of hit a performance level, or do you think he needs to improve to keep his seat? Because it's a weird one again with the money.
I think as long as he doesn't drop off, and I think as Freddie said, as long as he's, I guess, I hate using this word, but solid or decent. I know that's a rubbish word to use, but
it makes sense.
As long as he's those things, he doesn't have to do anything incredible. He's just got to not be awful. I think
if he keeps on the current trajectory of his F1 career, he's safe with Williams. I think he's happy there. They love him. I'm pretty sure from all the stuff they say, they're never negative about him. And, he's, again, the adjectives are mediocre, but he's doing good. And, that's not bad.
I think we said a similar thing about
Perez. Insight in the world.
I think we said a similar thing about Perez last week as well. How
there's different.
Don't have to perform incredible. Yes, a different case.
It's different when you're a team fighting for the world championship and a team fighting for solid performances and just fighting to have consistency in your car, let alone consistency in your winning. So I think there's a Perez kind of figure, would need to, put his finger out a bit in the Red Bull, but Latifi would need to prove, he's hitting his marks every day, and in the race he's performing to the exact sort of millimeter of what he needs to do to get the performance, and that's an entirely different. The rawness of it is the same, but it's kind of like Perez has got to have that absolute belief and fire in his performances, whereas Latifi's got to have that kind of consistency and that calculation to his drive, and I think he's getting there. I think he's with that, in my opinion.
Yes, I agree. I think it's an interesting team to watch. I think all of them are, to be fair, but I think there's a bit about this team. And just quickly as well, Williams they've done more of a clear out or less of a clear out than I thought, but they brought Zach O'Sullivan into the driver academy, who we all like, me and Freddie have spoken to, and Logan Sargent moved up to F2 this year. So I think there is some some kind of promise there as well. Jamie Chadwick will hopefully be moving up to a high Formula Series as well. She's not doing the Wii Series again, so there's kind of stuff there too. But again, this isn't the F2 podcast, so we will move on to the team that has maybe got most people excited, I think, judging by the reaction. And the car, again, it's a stunner, I think, especially from the front on it. Kind of looks similar to some kind of, the 1990s cars from this team. And that is Ferrari, who, yes, people are excited about. They've gone a very brave, I think Binotto used the word brave Ferrari to describe it. It's got kind of troughs on the side pod, kind of valleys, which is obviously a direction that none of the other teams have gone. And it's kind of whether it's brave or stupid, really, or whether both are the same thing.
The livery is lovely. It's basically a return to the last livery Enzo Ferrari basically signed off, which is this black and sort of proper scarlet red, proper Murray Walker scarlet red. And I really like that because we can just look at it and go, yes, that is the team that's been here since day one of the championship, because it looks like the team, if that makes sense. It's not just a prancing horse on a car that's really bright orange, in my opinion. So I really like what it looks like. I think fans have been calling for that kind of look for a long time, and they've done it. And no wonder it's won a lot of love on the social media sphere. I think I put a tweet out for the Aston Martin launch a week ago or so, saying these side pods are the most exciting since 2011, referring to the U side pods that were basically big dips on the side of the McLaren in that year. And I think these are the most exciting side pods since last week in that regard, then following on from that. Because, yeah, it's just a completely different concept to anything anyone could have imagined. I mean, I think the car looks really interesting. I think aerodynamically, it's one to get your head around. I don't know how it sort of flows into itself. It is aggressive, but I mean, aggressive doesn't necessarily mean good. Like as a package, it's kind of a bit like, oh, lots of things. Okay, hopefully it works. It's not an obvious car, but I like that, and I hope it works. I really hope it works. It just gives me a sense of kind of like, ooh, and then like you get with Ferrari. That's my kind of gut feeling. Does that make any sense?
No, I think that does make sense. I think I'm quietly confident Ferrari are going to be the car to beat, or one of the cars to beat.
That's big.
It looks. I mean, the car itself looks. If it looks as good as it is fast, then it's incredible. I mean, I think it's the best looking car I've seen since.
Okay.
It is absolutely incredible. I don't think there's such thing as a perfect F1 car, but given the regulations and the way F1 has gone, that is as good as you can get.
Whoa!
I really think.
Whoa!
That's
getting clipped.
Bigger words from Nigel.
So.
But we've been here before with Ferrari. We've been here so many times before. 2016, it's like, wow, we're going to win the championship. 2018, it's like, wow, look at our race pace. We're going to win the championship. And just nothing. And it's just like, things. 2019.
They're going to win the championship this year.
They've got the drivers.
That's terrible. They've got good drivers, yeah, but they've had good. The Ferrari, they've always had good drivers.
But McLaren side, arguably the two best drivers they've had in the last 5 or 6 years.
They've had what, out of 4 drivers?
Out of 4, yeah. Yeah. Because I thought, like, if I include Alonso, you can't really say that, so that's why I had to. But no, I think. With Binotto leading the team, his technical mind there, and they've been, bigging up 2022. Even last year, when they had great results on the podium multiple times, they've always, said that they wanted to concentrate on this year. And I'm really confident that the 14-year reign is going to finally come to an end. So,
I really hope so, because everyone's a Ferrari fan, and I know Adam's not, but everyone else is. And like, it's just, I love them and I want them to do so well. I do want them to win, but I don't like to think Ferrari are going to do well, even when they're on like pole position. I think they're going to lose the race. It's that kind of thing. It's just I just don't trust them.
Big changes to the technical regs. 2017, they went from 2016 to 2017. They were challenging for the title 1 year before. They were nowhere.
Yeah.
2014, it was just the engine. Mercedes walked everyone with the engine.
Oh, they had a car to make it work as well. Ferrari were way off.
Yes.
Yeah, but even the Ferrari car itself,
it looked like an anvil had been dropped on the front wing.
I don't think it was that bad.
It wasn't great though. There was a reason it wasn't good.
But still, and then 2009, I guess you got the excuse of in a championship fight and stuff. But I really think they've got it right this year. I really do.
I mean, I really hope so, but I don't know what you're basing it on. You're just basing it on rhetoric.
And the fact that the car looks stunner. I mean, the kind of side.
They all can say we're going to do well. They all can say we focus on it for some time. But I mean, by that logic, Haas should dominate, and they're not going to in all of our opinions. But we don't know. We just don't know. And I don't know. I mean, I think we both have very different gut reactions to this car. I think, mine was that I don't trust it, and yours was that it's the best thing to ever happen in the history of F1, which is shocking in my opinion.
Well, I kind of half buy into both. I think it looks absolutely stunning. I think especially just all the side pods, the kind of air intakes on the side as well. I think they're the only team that have gone kind of as letterboxy as that. And but on the flip side, it's kind of all this talk about, being a brave Ferrari and everything. That all sounds great until you turn up and, actually see it on track. And I just don't know whether I kind of trust the kind of different direction they've gone into all the other teams to kind of. I'm in the same kind of camp as you, Freddie. I just don't know if I trust it. I don't know if I can trust it.
Do you remember the hype around McLaren in 2017 when they basically painted their car orange? And everyone's like, oh my God, McLaren are going to do wonderfully. They're going to be brilliant. They're going to do so well. And it's one of the worst years in the history of F1. And then the same with Aston Martin in they had James Bond at the launch and that kind of thing. It was like, oh my God, Aston Martin, I think Aston Martin are really going to do this and they're going to do well. Just because they said they were going to do well, then they didn't. And I really want them to do well. I really want you to say, I told you so when we get to Bahrain. And I
did last year.
I was the one who said Red Bull would do well. I remember saying I told you so to you.
I think we both did.
Yeah. And it's just like, don't count your eggs. Don't count your eggs yet. This car's only run on track on a filming day at Fiorano. It's what it's designed to do.
I've just been confident about Ferrari for a few months. I think everything's come together. The drivers, everything. It's the timing. The timing of it is perfect. Like, Leclerc will be in his fourth season. The science is even more experienced. I think, I just believe in them. I really do, and I've not felt that for Ferrari for a long, long time. That belief.
I'll tell you what. I wish I was you. I wish I did. I wish I did.
No, you don't wish you was me. You do not.
No, I don't wish I was you. I wish I believed. I wish I believed in Ferrari in the way that you do. Because I think they'll do well. They're Ferrari. They've got inherent infrastructure that designs and builds good Formula One cars. That is just the way they exist. It's in their nature. But I don't know. I agree. The drivers are ready. I agree. The team has probably focused on it, but I don't know. It's just so sort of. Here's Formula One cars for 2022. Yeah, there are a few little intricacies, a bit of tricks of the trade going on. They're all got their own philosophy, but at the end of the day, there's that. And then there's this Ferrari car, and it's like, oh, okay. Is Picasso your designer because you've done some kind of cubist F1 car?
It's not got like an ear on the side of the front wing.
My answer to that is, I think Ferrari are the team so far that have shown the most of the actual car from the launch. I know the teams have been out and done shakedowns and film days and stuff.
Yeah, you're probably right.
I think Ferrari are the one who showed their car the most.
I think the last thing I'll say on this is my favourite quote in kind of
Before I
all
have an
time is Mike
aneurysm.
Tyson. Mike Tyson saying everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And I don't know whether Ferrari, I don't know whether I trust them to bounce back from being punched in the mouth. I think Mercedes.
They already have, to be fair. They bounced back in 2021 from being punched in the mouth in 2020.
Yeah,
to be
but
fair.
not at the level that they might be this season. Like, I don't think they were coming from a different place, coming from a different level of expectation. I think this season, I just don't know whether I really trust that. Having said that, I also would say, I think the driver lineup is up there as the best in the sport. It's top three, I'd say. It's definitely. I don't know where I'd put it in the top three, but at the same time, the other two teams that I'd put up there are, the teams that are probably most likely to be challenging them in Mercedes and Red Bull. So, while it depends where they are. If they're battling the same teams of next season, I think they've got distinct advantages in the driver lineup, but that's not where they want to be fighting. So, yeah,
we will see. We will see.
Maybe not long now.
Maybe we won't see.
Well, we won't see because it's not televised, but
which is fine. The second one is, so everyone's fine. Yeah.
Let's move on.
We still get Ted's notebook, guys. Come on, that's all you need. That's all you care about with testing.
We'll get this podcast.
What you care about? You're saying that for yourself.
Oh yeah, exactly. And whatever.
Right. So Freddie's okay. That's all we need to know. Right. Yeah. Moving on. Before, as he says, he has an aneurysm. Then on Mercedes, it's a fantastic quote because it just you can apply it to every team that is successful and unsuccessful, and it's brilliant, and I love it. It's fantastic. I'm going to use it as my prism that I view all sport through in future. Anyway, moving on to Mercedes, who are definitely a team that can be punched in the mouth and recover. Yeah, they've gone back to silver. Freddie's happy. It was Freddie's favourite launch as well, and they've launched the team that I would say is up there as the I don't know. I think it's up there as the most talented driver lineup. I don't know whether it's the one that will work best together, but I think in terms of raw talent, it is the best. It's they're starting again this season, wanting to reclaim their crown that they will believe wasn't, stolen from them maybe in Abu Dhabi, and the car. I don't know, the car they brought out. It seems to be one that could do the job.
Yeah, very, very tightly packaged, really neat and tidy. And I think it's the car that resembles the most from last year's machine, actually, even though the regs have changed. There's something about it. It kind of looks, obviously not similar, but it's got different parts of the car you can take from last year and bring it onto this year. So, I found that quite interesting because other teams seem to look completely different to last year.
Oh, boys, this car makes me happy. I don't know why, but the gut for this car for me is just, oh yeah, I love it. I've been thirsting over this car all day. I think it's fantastic. I think it looks spectacular, and I don't know if that's just because I'm biased because this is my favorite livery that Mercedes have done, and I like it a lot. I really like it, guys. I really like it. I really want it to do well, and it looks great. Oh my god, it looks great. Sorry, someone save me, please.
I don't know. It looks so kind of futuristic. I don't know. It kind of combines. I don't know. At least visually, it looks like there's a few maybe similarities with the kind of back end of the Aston, just in terms of how kind of smooth and suave it looks, and then the front, the front wing end plates are just the whole front wing. It's kind of it's like the dolphin tail. It's what all of the concepts people were doing it before these regs came out had, and they've actually put them in. Yeah, I think it looks fantastic. It looks very big and very small at the same time. I'm still not really figured that out in my head, but hopefully I will do that at some point. And yeah, it's just a question now is, can it go as quickly as it looks?
We don't know.
I mean,
we don't know, but I hope
Mercedes,
so.
we don't know, but for the last 8 years, Mercedes have built a championship-winning car. So what's to say that they're not going to do it for a ninth? And I know everything has to come to some kind of end, but it's hard not
But
to
why? Why does
back
it?
them. Well, that's a good question.
I think also you've not had kind of big departures or something that you'd think might precipitate the
Well, they've
end
lost some
of a run.
technical people.
They've lost Bottas.
They've
Yeah,
had the
they've
biggest
lost Bottas.
redesign of their power unit in about 6 or 7 years, apparently, which is interesting considering there's a freeze. But anyway, it's this new guy who's come in, Hal something or other, who's replaced Andy Carroll at Brixworth at HPP. I'm sorry, I don't know his name.
That's all right.
That's to my my failings, but they've done a bit of an overhaul with that, and they've made some differences. They're still picking apart and growing. And I think that's what makes this team really interesting to me, is that they're always picking up and going on and moving forward. And where they've moved forward from is usually from quite far ahead of everyone else. And they didn't win the Drivers' Championship last year, but that's a open and shut case for debate. But anyway, I think everything that you kind of can take as a baseline for Mercedes, like Nigel says, for the past 8 years, is that this is a team that wins championships and fights for championships and race wins. And if it isn't at the start, it will be at the end. It's that kind of thing. We saw how much they honed their machine in 2021, that car in testing looked like it was trying to just drive the opposite direction to whichever way it was driving whenever it was being driven. Like, you try and turn left, the back end will go right. You try and turn right, the back end will go left, that kind of thing. So, or just oversteer completely. It was a donut of a car. It wasn't it was a Hunican. But this one, if it's bad at the start, I trust Mercedes to hone it. And that's one of the things with this team, is I trust them to get the best out of this car very quickly, even if it is lacking in some ways, even if the Ferrari bathtub side pods mean that it's going to be some kind of spaceship away leading the field. I just trust Mercedes to do something ridiculous and just be like, well, we just put a good setup on it, and now it's the best car in the world. And yeah, I've got a bit delirious this episode.
Yeah.
Well, what I was going to say is,
I love it.
Whilst I don't know, if there's going to be a year where they've got it wrong, it's going to be this year. That's what I'd say. And
it's a good point.
I don't know. I've just got this weird. I don't think they're going to have the best car. It always feels. I'm not sure. I can't say. We've not seen them out on track, so we can't say. But it's just there's something telling me Mercedes. This will be the first year they won't win a title since 2014.
Can I ask Nigel a question?
Yeah.
Nigel, if you had to rank this Constructors' Championship this year, is it going to be Ferrari and everyone else is in like 5th?
Mercedes will be probably second to Ferrari, yeah.
Okay.
And everyone else will be 5th.
And then Hasse 10th. I kind of get what you're saying, in that there feels like there's more unknowns going into this year than every year. And I know it's Mercedes, and we've all talked about how they know how to be a great F1 team. But when we talked at the end of last season, we were saying actually kind of where some of the championship has come down to is Red Bull executing as a team and Mercedes not. And I just think there are kind of more question marks. We don't know how Hamilton and Russell are going to gel yet, or where kind of they're going to fit in performance-wise against each other. And, compared to, say Ferrari, say Red Bull with Perez and Sainz kind of in that clearly defined number 2 role, I just don't. I think there are question marks. I think there's more question marks than there have been over them as a team really since 2014, going into 2014. So, yeah, I know what you mean, but at the same time, I think, you can I think looking at the individual components, I think you can back Mercedes to make a good car, you can back them to make a good engine, you can back Hamilton and Russell to be good drivers. I just think it's how it all goes together on a race weekend that I'm just a bit hesitant to back.
Yeah, and I think that's the same. That's what we've got to, the kind of caveat we've got to give everyone this year. That it's hesitant to back everyone and anyone. And if we were to go out before testing and say, here's an order that we think the championship's going to finish in, with you're destined to basically writing internet suicide and that kind of thing. It's just not on unless you're.
Well, we're speaking.
We are speaking, but we're just speaking about random illusions. We're not speaking from a perspective of I don't know, say we're a retired championship winning technical director. We're not looking at it from that perspective where we've studied the cars intently with so much detail.
Even those people, that they won't know as well. No one knows what it's going to be like. There's in F1 with new regs, especially. There's millions. Well, yeah, I'd say there's millions of different tiny factors. They've all got to come together to produce a fast car, a fast lap time. So that is what every team has got unknowns. It's just Mercedes with the history, with the drivers. That's the team. You can definitely say they'll be up there. It's just whether they are 1, 2, or 3, quite frankly.
Yeah, I agree. I think they'll be competitive. I guess my thing is just comparing them to, say, Red Bull. I think Red Bull, we know the synergy between Verstappen and Perez is there. We know from last season that they nailed, 90% of the kind of big calls that they needed to, and they've, improved their car year on year over the last few years as well. So I think that's just comparing those two teams particularly. I think that's where my kind of questions come in. Is I think for the first time in a long time we're looking at it, and we don't know how the cars will perform, but looking at all the other tangible aspects that we can look at, I'd say Red Bull might have kind of the upper hand in certainty going into season.
I don't know anything.
Just like we said throughout the podcast and last week, we'll have to see.
I really hope
will.
It's competitive. That's just what I'm hoping for, to be honest. I'm hoping all these guys are competitive because they all deserve to be competitive. And this is their chance.
We can't have everyone being competitive.
I know, we can. It's fine.
20 different winners.
Yeah, it's easy.
They've all got different philosophies, and
that's fun.
You could say one team's got it right, one team's got it wrong. But we saw last year, Red Bull and Mercedes, they had very different cars, short wheelbase, long wheelbase, different power units, different packages. Everything was different, yet they produced incredibly similar lap times and performances across the season. So even though a team might have a very different looking car to another team, they might end up being quite similar when it comes to the speed. So
excellent.
That's the great thing about these new regs.
And we've not seen Red Bull's car yet. It could have a rear wing made of brakes for all we know. We don't know. Well, probably
that would be a poor idea.
So, is there anything else any of you want to add to the discussion? I've exhausted all of my F1 conversation for today.
I think I said something like this. I think I said something like this
till the end of the morning.
I think I said something like this in the Mazzy episode with Nigel yesterday that we did. That it's just I'm just all good to be really excited about Formula One at the moment. And some of these cars that have come out in the past 2 weeks have really just solidified that for me. This Merc, the Ferrari, just the utter wackiness of the Ferrari is just so exciting and interesting. The clean but sneaky attack kind of perspective you get from the Merc team at the moment, that everything they were saying was just kind of like, yeah, we're gonna give it our all. There's a line in Drive to Survive series 2, I think it is, where Toto Wolff just says running a Formula One team is very much like planning for wars. Like, we're going to crush them. I just get the impression
we like to see that.
We love to see that. I get the impression that it's just that times 10 from everyone at the moment. It's just a bit just like, yeah, let's get in the fight. And I'm excited for that. I'm really excited for that. And
I think
actually, that is one point that I was kind of forgot to mention with Mercedes. I think the way last season finished, they will have many fires in their belly. They will have coal power stations in their bellies because they, believe they will not be happy with how last season ended. And I think that when we're looking at kind of extra percent, extra 10%, I think that will be significant. Sorry, Nigel.
There's going to be so many chips on their shoulder, they can make a chip butty.
I think F1's reputation was tarnished a bit at the end of last year. But I think, after a couple of months off, it's now really exciting again. We've got a massive reset with everything. New race directors, new rules, new cars. We've got one of the best grids in terms of talent and quality, probably this century. So everything is positive. And as long as we have 2 or more teams closely together at the front, there's no reason why this can't be, just as exciting as last year. And last year was, the best season, one of the best seasons ever. So everything is there. All of the ingredients, as Freddie pointed out earlier, are there for a great, great year.
Yeah, I echo that. I think going into the start of January, it just felt a bit like F1 fatigue, and we took a bit of a break from recording, and now it feels like coming back, and the launch season is starting. These new, so exciting cars are coming out, and yeah, it feels like things have moved on. Things are in the rearview mirror. We're ready to go for this season, and we will be back next week to discuss more as things hype up, as we get more and more excited. But until then, goodbye.
Woo!